Tom in Michigan. Tom, you are on the line. Oh, I forgot to take that banner down earlier. But Tom, you are on the line with Jimmy and Austin.
Hey, Jimmy. Austin.
What's up?
Hey.
So you are calling in as a representative of MAGA, I suppose, right?
Yeah, I guess I'd break the ice for you guys, trying to help the show out a little bit.
Oh,
right on.
We appreciate the favor. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Love it.
But I voted for him 3 times. And, hopefully vote for him 4 times. I'm hoping.
Hopefully,
well, you know that the Constitution says that you can't do that, right, Tom? So why don't you care about that?
Well, that'd be nice. I like his attitude.
Yeah, you just don't give a shit. Yeah, it would be nice. Yeah, it could be nice to just do something that the Constitution blatantly says you can't do. Would be nice to just say fuck it to the Constitution, right, Tom? Because MAGA doesn't give a shit about the Constitution, right, Tom?
Oh no, we care. But I think there might be a
you
loophole
don't. You just said. You literally just said. You literally just said you want to do something that the Constitution says you can't do. You were like, oh, it would be nice. It'd be nice to do something that the Constitution says we can't do.
You do understand you just use the word loophole, right, Tom? Like a loophole, when you're saying you do care about the Constitution, a loophole, no matter what the thing is, you find a tax code loophole, you're not honoring the spirit of the tax code in that scenario, which, I don't feel as bad about not doing that with the taxes. But if you find a loophole in the Constitution, you are saying you are trying to subvert, you are trying to find the way around the spirit of what the Constitution intended. So let me ask you this, Tom, were they define this loophole, are you also comfortable with Barack Obama being his opponent?
Sure, heck yeah.
And do you think Donald Trump could beat Barack Obama? He couldn't beat Joe Biden.
Well, he put Joe Biden down. I mean, whatever you want to call it, debate. It was done. So.
What do you mean? He never took Joe Biden down.
Far gone.
What's that?
I said Joe Biden was so far gone, he shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Sure, neither should have Donald Trump. I agree. I 100% agree that Joe Biden, I don't think we have made a correct presidential choice in some time. Arguably, Barack Obama was important to our nation, but I'm not stoked that we, war criminal still. But, I fully agree Joe Biden shouldn't have ever been there. And actually, I agree that the senility of both men, or at least questions of their mental strength, should have been a disqualifying factor for both of them. Now, I think that's a weird thing for you to stand on because you have lots and lots of mental health experts describing Joe Biden as an individual who appears to be slowing down with age as you do, but not showing signs of slipping into dementia. We just sort of colloquially now call every old person who have slowed down dementia. Dementia has actual symptoms. And if you actually want to track symptoms, Donald Trump is showing signs of dementia. Joe Biden is showing signs of dying soon.
Okay, there you go. But Donald Trump's pretty sharp for a 78-year-old man or whatever he is.
No.
77, whatever.
No, he's really not, Tom. He's really not. Have you?
Are you kidding me?
Tom, do you get Tom, okay, Tom. So when Donald Trump stands on stage at several different speeches in the last few months and just opines on the nature of the word groceries, do you watch that and get an intellectual boner thinking, look at this guy's brain? When the guy sits there,
that person goes groceries. I mean, what's
what
wrong
the
with talking
fuck
about
are you talking about, Tom?
No, Tom's being dishonest. Tom's pretending he's talking about groceries. Donald Trump got up there and was saying that nobody even really uses the word groceries anymore, even though every American does. He's so out of touch that groceries just appear in his cabinets. So he doesn't understand people are still going. But how about the other day when he claimed that eggs have gone down 92%? Is that true, Tom?
I think they've gone down a little bit, maybe not 92%.
They haven't. They're up, Tom.
They're still up.
They're up.
So you're saying they've gone down a little. Let's say you were right, that they had gone down a little. Is 92% from the person who ran on eggs an acceptable mistake to make?
Yeah, that's a pretty big mistake. I don't know what the price is or what the actual percentage is, but I know it has gone down.
Right now, the average cost of eggs is $6. It's up.
It's up.
It is up?
Yes,
it's
sir.
up.
I just bought something. I don't know. I guess it depends where you're at.
How do you feel about the tariffs, Tom?
Well, I think it's an experiment, and I hope it goes good, but it might not go good.
Do you want them experimenting with your 401k? You want them experimenting with thing that every major economist has said? By the way, Republican economists, I don't need to cite a single Democrat or leftist economist to show you that it is well known. I can give you Ben Shapiro, sir. Like, if you want, I can give you the Ben Shapiro rant of you don't do this. This is basic. And every time we have done this before, about every 100 years, we experiment. Like you just said, we experiment with tariffs. You know what happened the last time 100 years ago after we experimented with tariffs? The Great Depression. And then there was another depression 100 years prior to that. It's literally, you're talking about an experiment like it's new. This is the idea of a man named Peter Navarro. Who is Peter Navarro, Tom?
I have no idea.
He is a trade advisor and economist to Donald Trump. He is also anti-trade. So Donald Trump has made an anti-trade person who, by the way, was in prison last year for the shit he was doing during Trump's first term. He has put an anti-trade person in charge. It's weird. It's like somehow finding the one Jewish Nazi to be in charge of immigration. Oh shit, he did that too, Stephen Miller.
Do you want to know my favorite story about?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to know my favorite part about Peter Navarro, Tom, who is the main guy that Trump got his idea about tariffs from? Mm-hmm. So Peter Navarro wrote a book, and he said that there was this leading economist that justified his stance on his anti-trade stance on and his ideas about tariffs, and he made up an alter ego, and he made an anagram for a different name of his name. He took the name Navarro and made up a guy named Ron Vara. And Ron Vara is not a real guy. He just made up a guy. So like he took the name Navarro and turned it into Ron Vara and said that this is a leading economist who agrees with him. And Donald Trump, the guy that you're like, he's sharp as a tack. Man, Donald Trump is sharp. That guy's sharp. Donald Trump is doing what he's doing because Peter Navarro made up a fake person and pretended that person said that tariffs were a good idea. I'm not lying about that. That's real, Tom.
Right. I mean, it's good to try something new. I don't like the way that it was going. So.
But it isn't new, Tom. Tom, it isn't new.
Okay.
Like,
well, it's 100 years or whatever, like I said.
Right. But it isn't. Last time it was a depression, dude. It's like you're saying, let's try something new. Why don't we try to annex Poland? Well, how'd that go last time, Tom? It's a thing that we know what the result is, and we know it's bad. And by the way, Tom, we know why it's bad. Who pays tariffs, Tom?
Yeah, we do.
Right. So let me ask you this, Tom. If we pay the tariffs, it means it's going to be on goods you consume. Let's say that Trump is right and we take in a ton of money and we do tax cuts. And the tax cuts, you get a little bit of a tax cut, but because people make more money, have more money, they get a much bigger tax cut of millions and millions and in a few instances, billions of dollars. They get a huge tax cut. But you are now paying quite a bit more based on the tariffs. So the tariffs are coming in, your prices of everything go up. And Donald Trump is being crazy with these things, like over 100% tariffs in China. So we're talking lots of prices going way, way up. Just hang on, Tom. I just want to make sure that you have this. You're going to pay a lot more, maybe get a little bit of a tax cut. It will not cover. And in fact, right now it looks like your taxes might go up, but let's say you get the cut because they're going to pretend you're going to. You get a little tax cut, but you'll still be paying way more in tariffs, which is itself a type of tax. So you'll be paying more overall on taxes, but your income tax might be lower. And the people who are rich will be paying billions less together, billions, trillions less if you put them all together. Let me ask you, Tom, what happens there? What am I describing? Am I describing something that's great for America, or am I describing that Donald Trump, his policy is literally going to take from regular Americans like you, Tom? I presume you're not rich. I presume we're all middle class here. I hope so. You, a middle class person, take more cash out of your pocket and give it to rich people just if what he says he's going to do happens by his own words.
Right. Well, I also think that he wants some of the jobs to come back to the United States. So the tariffs will push some of the companies to bring some of the labor back to the United States and create more jobs in the United States.
And that would actually raise the
jobs?
prices even more, Tom. If you make an iPhone in China, from China in America, because we don't have the labor force and the skilled labor to do that, we don't have the fingers here that can put all those things together. You are talking about billions and trillions of dollars in investment into people who, to then get those skills. And it will just be a very limited labor force. So things will come out slower. Innovation will happen slower. And the costs of those will go up. So your iPhone right now, which costs about $1,000, maybe broken up if you do it on installments, but still $1,000, the base price of that would go up to $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to make it in America. It's all jobs no one here wants to do. People aren't trying to go. We live in a nation that as a nation is rich. People in nations like ours are interested in services, not, they don't want to work in.
Do you remember Jimmy Carter when he was in office, or are you too young, or do you remember that? Or?
I was not alive, but I know plenty about the Carter administration.
Well, Jimmy Carter, when they had the chair of the NAFTA thing, he said a lot of the jobs like building washing machines and building, whatever, things like washing machines, nobody in the United States wanted. We wanted to go to high tech. So he took all these people that, build washing machines and brake pads and all these things, and he shipped it all overseas. I think there's a lot of people in the United States right now that love to be building washing machines and building brake pads and doing all that stuff, bring all that stuff back to the United States.
Is unemployment high or low right now? Yeah, you're definitely wrong. Unemployment is low right now. So you're talking about adding a bunch of jobs. You're talking about adding jobs that right now are overseas so that life is cheaper for us, that because Americans like their cheap goods. So you're talking about skyrocketing the prices and replacing jobs here that will mostly be service industry jobs with lower paying jobs. They're not going to take a job that they're paying on average, $3 an hour, the equivalent of to somebody overseas, and make that a $25 an hour, which is what you need to make right now to survive, a $25 an hour job in America. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, Tom, I have a question for you, really quick. You said that, you think that there's a lot of people who would want to be making, washing machines and refrigerators and manufacturing jobs basically in America. Do you think that Americans generally would be happier, that the country would be better if we had more manufacturing jobs, people working in factories and working on assembly lines? Do you think that would be good for the country?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you want to work personally? Do you want to work in a factory on an assembly line and build washing machines? Is that a job you want to do?
I did for 20 years. I worked in a shop. Yeah.
And that's the job, but that's the job you want to have.
Well, I don't do that now, but I did do that for 20 years. Yeah.
You gonna do it for minimum wage? How much? Wait, Tom. How much did you make per hour when you left at the shop you were in?
Like 19 something an hour. That was probably 20 years ago.
So do you really think those people are getting $19 an hour when it comes back from the cheap? By the way, Tom, you're talking about people. Who builds washing machines right now? Do you think it's people?
Well, whoever, machines or whatever. But,
yeah, it's robots. Do you think that we're going to, if let's say we get the factory here, do you think that it's going to be mostly people? There are jobs that are people laden. We don't have the skills to do it. We literally do not have the skills force in America to build iPhones. They don't exist. We'd have to import Chinese people to do it because we don't have that skill force. So that doesn't work because you guys are anti-immigration too. So you're talking about factory jobs that could come over here are literally robot jobs. So it's not that there's going to be thousands, millions of new assembly line jobs. There's going to be dozens to hundreds to maybe a few thousand new supervisory jobs and repair technician jobs that still will not offset the cost of bringing those all over.
And I just wanted to I wanted to finish the reason why I asked the question I asked, though, Tom, is, and you answered in a way that I did, I'll be honest, I didn't expect you to say that you spent most of your career working on an assembly line. I wasn't expecting that. But there's new polling out where they asked a bunch of Americans, they said, the question I asked you, do you think that America would be better off with more manufacturing jobs, people working in factories and on assembly lines? And about 82% of people polled said, yes, they do believe that manufacturing jobs would be good. Then they asked them the follow-up question, would your life be better? Would you personally feel like you were better off with a manufacturing job? And about 75% of those same people said no. So it's all these people saying, yeah, I think manufacturing jobs would be good for the country, just not me. I just don't want to do it. So the fact that, like, you know, you fell outside of what I thought you were going to answer, you know, and I gotta give you that. But my point is, like, most people right now aren't hungry for a job on an assembly line and in a manufacturing job. And also, like Jimmy said, most of those jobs are being done by robots anyway. And the cost of what it would, the price of what it would cost to actually have those robots in those factories here and have people monitoring them would be passed on to the consumer, and it would just result in more expensive goods. All the way down the line, this is a bad economic proposal.
What percentage of Republican economists have to say unilateral tariffs are a bad idea, Tom?
I think just bringing jobs back to America would be good, no matter what they are. And, you know, whether it's watching machines run or whatever, you know, more jobs in America is always good, I would think. But, you know,
well, we just explained why. Well, we just explained why certain jobs in America aren't good, because it results in more expensive goods, but by a lot.
Well, it would.
So, right. So how is that good for Americans?
Because more people that have money, more people that have jobs. So, you know, I mean, it's got to be a trade-off. It's not going to just be one-sided. It's going to be a little bit of a trade-off.
there is a trade-off. If more people
there is a trade-off.
You're talking about the one individual who, if one individual gets a job who wouldn't have gotten a job before, but the amount of money that he is making or she is making, which, let's be honest, they're trying to do things that they think will appeal to young white men. But whatever. The amount of money that, let's say they make $40,000 a year because some miracle it's not a minimum wage job. If the amount of money that they are making is less than if $40,000 then gets distributed to an increase in cost. Let's talk about coffee. You can't really grow coffee in America. There's very few places, there's not a lot. So if we bring coffee jobs back to America, and it then will skyrocket the cost of coffee, but you're going to have more people who have jobs cultivating coffee crops. So they have jobs, and let's say to pay all of them costs $100,000 a year, but Americans are paying $1 million a year more for their coffee. That's the trade-off. There's more people with jobs, but less money for the people, except for the rich people. Tom, this is why I feel so bad, because I don't think you're a dick. I think you are doing your best. I think I love shop people. I actually have a wood shop. I'm moving, but I'm setting up my new wood shop, and I'm into that kind of stuff. I love working with my hands. I might be the kind of person who would work some kind of factory job, though if it was monotonous, I would hate it. But if I could be creative in some way, I'd love it. I think you have been duped, Tom. I think that there is a man who basically went, I have so much money. And what is money if it isn't security? I think calling money has made it mean nothing to everybody. Units of security that you'll have a home, security that you'll have food, security that you'll be able to entertain yourself, have fun. Like money is security. And he has more security than he or many thousands of people need to be totally secure. And he's looked at his big pile and gone, I have so much security. But Tom has security that I think he could live without. And I would like to make his pile smaller and my pile and the pile of my other friends who have big security piles bigger at the cost of his. He is literally, by doing these tariffs, transferring money from your pocket. And if you said you made $19 an hour, I assume that means your wife had to work too, and that you don't own a home yourself or anything. You can't. Maybe you got in beforehand. I don't know how old you are, but $19 an hour, you are not buying a house in this country.
That's 20 years ago.
Sorry?
Well, that's 20 years ago when I was working.
Okay, 20 years ago. Maybe you could then. You definitely can now. So yeah, you're saying $19 an hour 20 years ago, by the way, which means like what? More like what would be the equivalent of $33, $34 an hour now is what you're describing. And so those manufacturing jobs that are coming over are especially not paying that. He has put into a policy that will take the money out of your pocket. You will actually pay more in taxes, but your income tax might go down a little, but overall taxes you'll pay in a year will go way up. And then rich people will have a much bigger tax cut, which you will have paid for. Tom, I honestly, you're not the kind of MAGA person that calls in that I want to be like, you fucking monster, you piece of shit, you put us here. You just want to hurt people you disagree with. You want to protect only Christians, and everybody else who's not white or Christian should be afraid to live here. You don't seem like that guy. You seem like the guy who's just doing your best going through life, and you're probably a bit isolationist, and that tends to be the dividing line. Republicans tend to care more about just taking care of themselves and their family, and people on the left and liberals and Democrats, they tend to have more of a concept of like a slightly bigger communities in the case of like moderates to then actually just everybody if you get into full-blown leftism. And I get that. And I even get the appeal because I really don't care on a personal level about anybody who isn't in my immediate bubble, but in a sort of existential level, I do. And that's why I'm a leftist. I don't hate you for it. I just think you've been duped, man. I think he's literally I think you voted for a guy who hates you and who is taking your money that you don't have an abundance of just to make his pile a little bigger.
Well, he's only been there for what, 90 days? I guess we'll just have to give him another, a year or two, see what happens. I mean,
sir, 4 years. He was 4 years, and the inflation you saw during the Biden administration. Again, if you study economics, this isn't something I'm making up. The inflation that happened during the with Biden, inflation happens on a delay. The tax cuts that Trump did, don't get me wrong, COVID did some of it too. Supply chain did some of it too. But the explosion that Biden then recovered from in a way that other countries across the world failed to meet, our recovery was stronger than any other one, are literally from exploding the deficit and passing those rich people tax cuts back in his first administration. So when you say we'll see, we've seen, sir, it's already fucked you.
Well, I drove to Florida in 2020, right before COVID, and I was paying, what, $1.99 for gas?
Mm-hmm.
And that was before before COVID and all that stuff. So
right.
Biden got in there and went up to $4. And even, let's look at this. When
we just explained that, Tom. Just explain that.
Yeah,
just explain that.
Let me make this point. Barack Obama is $4 a gallon, and everybody's saying, it's always going to be $4 a gallon, and it probably would have been $4 a gallon or more if Donald Trump didn't get in office. And Donald Trump got in office.
What policy? No, hang on. What policy did Donald Trump pass that made oil cheaper?
Drill, baby, drill.
No, sir. Then Biden's wouldn't have changed. We had more. We used more from the reserves under Biden. There are all these numbers where you're like, no, the world had an abundance of oil. The president actually does not influence very much the price of oil. You can probably justify a few things, but for the most part, it is just greedy companies who are, because everything is traded on the stock market, stock value. Do you know as a CEO whether it's funny how many people don't understand this. So I'm just going to see if you do. Tom, if every year my company makes $5 billion exactly in profit, would I be considered a successful or a failed CEO?
Probably successful.
Incorrect. In our country, you are a failed CEO if your profits are the same. Because we are on the stock market, if it's $5 billion every year, that means the share price isn't going up. So you are actually only successful if next year you make $6 billion and it's $7 billion, which then incentivizes the companies to do shitty things, pass costs along to the consumers, and cut the wages of their employees. Both of those things happened during Republican administrations. Both of them.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of Republicans either because they shipped a lot of jobs overseas too. So, but I think the MAGA movement is a little bit of a different Republican.
Companies ship them overseas, sir. I mean, I get it. Republicans allow it to happen, but it's not even.
Exactly. Over when Clinton was in office, and they had the NAFTA, Republicans are right there, patting Clinton on the back. Oh, yeah, let's ship all the jobs overseas. And, because we don't want to build any dishwashers here. We don't want to build any microwaves here. We want to.
I don't even know why you keep bringing this. I pass a Samsung factory in Texas pretty often. They're building stuff like that in Texas. So there are things we do build here, but it's going to be more compiling and stuff because we can't have certain jobs that are low cost. By the way, there's a person in the chat. I have to disagree with Jimmy on that. Plenty are willing to do those jobs. No, they aren't. They aren't, because when you're saying those jobs does not just mean, would I be willing to sit there and boom, boom, assemble and just do that on assembly line all day? There's a lot of people who say no to that by itself just because of the monotony. We're not just talking about that, though. I'm not just saying people are not willing to go boom, boom, bah, boom, boom, bah, and then go home and their things. I'm saying no one is going to do that for the cost, for the wage that we would have to do to keep prices under doing any more than doubling or tripling by bringing them to America. No one is going to do that for $8 an hour. If you could get $8, the federal minimum wage is $7.25. That's what a lot of these jobs would be.
Well, hard to say, but yeah. But I know in like my little town, there was a lot of factories that closed up after NAFTA, probably a half a dozen, and they all just went over to Mexico and China and wherever else they went. So
yes,
a lot of people lost their jobs.
Economies develop that way, though, man. Like I don't know what to tell you. There's a lot of people who are still. A lot of people went out of business too because the horse-drawn carriage industry, those factories are gone as well, and car factories replaced them, and then other countries still exist and started making better cars. It's not a matter of like they aren't going overseas arbitrarily; they're out-competed first. So the Tesla factories that are eventually going to go overseas, they're going to go overseas because they're going to get put out of business. But what's the name of the electric car that China's making for like a third of the price of Timu's the name of that website, but they've got one that's like actually an impressive car. It kind of is a Temu car, but it's kind of a ripoff, but it's way, way cheaper. And so it's not a matter of the factory. Like we just went, all right, we're going to do an agreement. Fuck Elon Musk, fuck Tesla. Let's go ahead and close Tesla and open the factory, or let's move the Tesla American factories to China, which by the way, Elon Musk did. He did start making stuff. He does have Chinese Tesla factories. But it's not as though we're going to be doing that. They get out-competed internationally. And so then people in America start working with those kinds of countries. And by the way, that is a place where sometimes you can justify using tariffs. Unilateral tariffs are stupid. BYD is the name of the car from the Temu Chinese electric car.
I know you keep bringing up China, but China's slave labor. I mean, you're basically talking about, a lot of United States, we live off slave labor, whether you like it or not. Your phone you're talking to, slave labor. The shoes you're wearing is slave labor. So we're basically living off slave labor, just like they did 250 years ago.
In some cases, that's true. However, in a lot of cases, that is an outdated. Like for example, I understand. I'm not saying that China. Well, slavery isn't quite the right word, but there's a lot of underpaid labor, certainly on the Asian continent. A lot of countries now, if you are in America, are held to. They often fail to hold up to a standard, but you are required to work with companies that are paying fair wages and the like.
Well, I don't know. China's a little different place over there. Like I say, we're all living off slave labor, whether you like it or not. That's what we're doing.
We've been going through
labor, but we're fucking wage slaves in America.
Right. Well, yeah.
It's all relative to whatever the average cost of living is in a particular place. Can people actually live in that place and pay for their? But you're not wrong that there are a lot of places, and I think that Jimmy makes a good point about calling it unethical labor. But we've been going through a lot of different points. I'm still curious about going back to this spot of, you said you remember in January of 2020 driving down to Florida and paying $1.99 for gas, and you also said earlier that, it's just the first 90 days of the new Trump administration, of the second Trump administration. We've got to give them a chance. We've got to wait and see. But what I remember, anecdotally, is that you guys were putting stickers on gas pumps in January of 2021 when Joe Biden had just been inaugurated, and people were putting stickers on gas pumps saying, "I did that," even though we all knew that the global price of gas was up because of the COVID-19 pandemic. That the natural result of people driving less meant that there was less demand, and that costs went up for gas across the entire globe. And we also know, like Jimmy said, that inflation happens on a delay. So we were getting hit twice. We were getting hit with the COVID-19 inflation of gas prices. And we were also getting hit with inflation from Trump's tax policies. And Joe Biden had to recover from that. So you just said, we got to give Trump more time. It's only been 90 days. But with the Biden administration, you were like, day one, day one, gas prices aren't where I like them. This is a disaster, right?
Biden shut down the pipeline. That would have made his gas a lot cheaper, and he shut the pipeline down. So he was in direct the reason why gas went up, because he shut down.
It was already up.
And then he opened the pipeline.
It was already.
Then he opened the pipeline in Russia. So he's okay to open the pipeline in Russia, but he shut ours down. So, I can see, if you're going to say it's environmentally right or whatever, wrong or whatever, okay, do it for both countries. But don't shut down
is
one.
Gas, is gas $1.99 right now?
No, I don't know what it is. $3.09, I think I paid yesterday.
Yeah, the average price is up again.
But Trump, like I say, he opened up everybody's eyes saying, okay, because Barack Obama said, no, it's going to be $4 a gallon. We're not going to be able to get any lower than that or whatever, blah, blah, whatever the literary or whatever you're saying. And then Trump said, no, we're going to get it down to $2.50 a gallon. And he did. And it just opened everybody's eyes.
When's he going to get us down?
All of a sudden, Trump did it. That opened a lot of people's eyes.
When's he going to get it down this time? Because, by the way, it also skyrocketed in his term, despite the fact that he supposedly was filling our reserves and didn't. But when's he going to get it down this time? Because, like you said, it was fine to criticize Biden right away. It seemed you agreed with it. It was fine to criticize him right away. But right now, Donald Trump, the price of gas right now is higher than the average. I just looked it up by about 10 cents than the average price during all of Biden's administration, including his COVID term.
Well, hopefully soon as I'm over.
Yeah, you're going to be thinking hopefully soon a lot.
Tom, is there any part of you that ever notices how it... Tom, hold on. Is there any part of you as you have conversations like this that notices how hard it is for you to be intellectually consistent with your positions, that you can completely say without even flinching, no, it's totally reasonable to blame Joe Biden for gas prices in the first few days of his administration. Right. Totally made sense. But here we are 100 days into the second Trump administration, and you're just saying, well, we got to just give him more time. Is there any part of you that notices the intellectual inconsistency when you do stuff like that?
Yeah, but, like I say, Biden shut the pipeline down. And everybody.
Yeah, by the way, I've been looking that up since you saying it, and I'm finding even from right-wing sites that the analysis of that is that the reduction in gas would have been extremely marginal. Like it wouldn't have been. You're probably right. It would have gone down, but we're talking cents. We're not talking dollars.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Like I said, I don't know all that, but yeah.
Well, don't make a point if you don't feel like it's I didn't start countering and telling you you're wrong about it until I started looking it up. Don't make a point if you're just repeating a Fox News talking point. I hope Fox News is at least it. I hope you're not going to those I hope you're not listening to Newsmax and that garbage.
And again, as Jimmy said earlier, Biden's economic recovery. So it started off in a bad place because of COVID and because of the tax policies of the Trump era. But Biden's economic recovery outpaced most other nations in the COVID-19 recovery.
Bro,
and so
I just looked it up. Tom, why did Biden shut it down?
I'm not sure. Why'd you shut it down?
They literally decided because independent analysts, so not liberal, not Democrat, concluded that it was no longer necessary. Basically, all the delays that had already happened, which that would have all been during the Trump administration because it was 4 years, they had already built existing pipelines and upgraded enough to move the entire capacity of Canadian oil to U.S. markets without the new pipeline. So by the time Biden got in and went, all right, just cancel it, it was because they had already covered all of that. It was no longer necessary.
Well, I'm just going by my memory, but they were kind of making it sound like it was an environmental thing. They didn't want the pipeline to break.
That is prior. Sir, that's prior to all that. That was the delays that they were happening because they were skipping out. And by the way, your boy Trump in 2016, despite promising to, did not reverse the regulations that would have allowed them to bypass all of that. It's weird to me if you are saying that you don't. Did you say you do think it matters whether or not there's environmental impact? Do you care if there is? If it's also, do you care if it impacts the land of other people, indigenous tribes' land? Do you care about any of that?
Well, everything we do impacts environmental thing. I mean, when we get up and breathe, we're impacting environmental.
Yes.
It depends on what kind of microscopic level you want to
Tom,
look at.
and we're not obviously I wouldn't have brought it up if it was the equivalent of us breathing. We're not being reductionist. We're being intellectually honest. Reductionism is the farthest from intellectual honesty that you could go with. Tom,
but if a little bit of oil does break open and go in the ocean, then I wouldn't mind that at all because oil comes out of the ocean ground just naturally. So
Tom,
if oil
I don't
go
think
back.
I don't think that's what we're talking about. I think we're talking about all the lands we're literally destroying to install this massive thing, and whether or not it is worth the slight increase if it had gotten done in time. But again, even if you opened it later, by the time Biden shut it down, it was no longer necessary.
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers or whatever, but I'll take your word on that or whatever. But I'll agree. I'm not going to disagree with you. So, but we've been destroying.
I would rather you say like, hey man, I haven't heard that. And I'm recognizing that apparently I didn't know enough about it. So I'm going to start going, and I would love you to do it with everything where you go, I think Donald Trump is a great president to become X. And then you take X and you put it into Google, and then you start looking all around, and not just at what the people you like say, not just start actually listening to both sides of the argument and see which one holds the most water. Because right now it sounds like you just kind of heard from probably not just like online, but also the communities you're in and involved with. There's no doubt if you were by the way, were you a union job?
I've been a union. Actually, I was a union steward probably 30 or 40 years ago. A little bit of both.
Union, and it was awesome, right?
It was okay. Either one.
Be real. Come on, man. Union jobs are way better than non-union. Would you have done the same job without union representation if you had the opportunity?
Like I said, I work for both, so I don't know.
I doubt it. To me, right? I don't know though how, when you already see the policies that they are pushing forward now after pretending to be more of a union president, they're now pushing toward more policies that are going to help more companies do more union busting and cause more people to not have representation and feel scared to unionize. When you were a part of, what did you say your position was in your union?
I was a union steward, which was
shouldn't you, as a union steward, shouldn't your thought to union busting be like, let's go bust that dude's knees? I'm being a little hyperbolic, but you were a union steward and you're okay with an anti-union president like Donald Trump?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's anti-union. I mean, a lot of union people voted for Trump, so I don't know.
Yes,
I don't think he's 100% anti-union.
I think if you were intellectually honest, you and I would both be able to agree with why a lot of union white men voted for Trump.
Why is that?
Because it's mostly white men, mostly in jobs that keep women out. You and I are both aware that unions are largely staffed weirdly by, let's just say, more socially conservative men. I'm not necessarily saying politically conservative, but socially conservative men. And you could not sell on policy does not matter to a lot of them. They were never going to vote for a black Indian woman. You and I both know that. Be real.
I'm not sure. I don't look at it like that, but.
You really think, honestly, she deserved 8 million less votes? Was that what it was than Biden got? That's, I don't know, man. I think you do know.
8 million than Biden? I mean, there's a lot of people shoving ballots in the mailboxes when Biden got voted in. So I don't. Yeah,
that's, by the way,
there's no evidence of that, Tom. He had 60. Yeah, there's just no evidence that ever happened, Tom.
Trump's own investigatory teams did not come to those conclusions. The cyber ninjas came.
I wouldn't want it to be any different, because the way it turned out was 100% better the way it turned out.
Oh, no, it did, sir. Sir, call me back. Call me back in a year. Call me back in a year. Right now, we are running through our untariffed supply. Call me back in a year when you have paid inexorbitant amounts for for like basic goods. The prices are about to blow up.
I'll tell you, Tom, you kind of say like, I don't know, maybe, I don't really know about that. You say that a lot. You seem to have a really cavalier approach to your personal politics, where you have these strong positions, but then when someone gives you a factual reason why that position is wrong, you just go, oh, well, I don't know about that. Well, it's very striking to hear someone kind of be like, oh no, for sure. Ballots were getting stuffed into mailboxes. No, there's no evidence of that. They lost every single lawsuit. They lost every chance they had to prove that was happening. There's never been any evidence to substantiate that. You just go, oh, I don't know, maybe. No, you have to be able to say, oh, I guess I'm wrong. Oh, I guess that's a wrong thing that I think.
Right, but I don't, like I said, I don't care about that anymore, because I'm glad it happened that way. But I know they had people shoving ballots in the mail, and they had it on video.
No, you don't know that. Shoving ballots in the mail is a meaningless phrase. There are places with mail-in ballots. So lots of people put their ballots in the mail. And you know what? I did mine emphatically. You might have thought I shoved it in.
I'm one of them.
Like the word shove just means nothing. They have audited these over and over. All right. Have you heard of the cyber ninjas, Tom? Tom, have you heard of the cyber ninjas?
Cyber ninja, seems like I might have heard it. Yeah.
They are a MAGA, basically cyber team. You know that they are on Team MAGA, right?
Nope.
Okay, well, they are. And they went, Arizona is one of the places, right, where Arizona is one of the places. Fraud. Right, where they were like, that state got flipped with fraud. Are you aware of that?
I remember all that going on, yeah. Okay,
so cybersecurity firm, Cyber Ninjas, goes and actually does a bunch of legal stuff. It was kind of crazy at the time, and I remember thinking like, ooh, this looks like they're going to be able to fudge things. We won't even know if they're telling the truth. Well, guess what? Turns out they actually did run truthfully, because they were able to get basically Arizona to give them the written counts, and do an audit. And they were there, the cyber ninjas, to prove the fraud. And let me tell you, Tom, they found the fraud. What was the result? What fraud did they find? Do you know?
Nope.
They changed a few dozen, not hundreds, not thousands, a few dozen votes got changed. Literally, we're talking less than 50. A few dozens were found to be fraudulent. Some of them need to be changed. Some of them need to be removed. The cyber ninjas, MAGA's cyber ninjas, what would you guess they found in that fraud? Do you think that fraud meant that Donald Trump got a few more votes, or Joe Biden got a few more votes when they fixed it?
I'm going to say Joe Biden.
The votes were disproportionately fraudulent in Trump's favor. So when MAGA cyber ninjas basically were like, this is by how much it was wrong, it was a few dozen, a tiny margin that has never changed the election ever. And everybody acknowledges that a few things fall through the cracks. Sometimes it's by accident, sometimes it's fraud every year, but it's never enough to change it. Their audit showed that fraud actually happened in the tiniest little margin in Trump's favor, and that if you were to correct the ballots and remove all the fraud, Biden would actually need to gain a few votes because the fraud was in Trump's favor, not Biden's. That's your guys. The cyber ninjas are MAGA. It is a cybersecurity firm that are MAGA. They went positive. In 2016, Donald Trump actually created, I think it was called a commission, created an investigatory commission from the government and said, go to California. Because even though I won all of the country, I think there are 5 million fraudulent votes there. And if you find those 5 million, we can actually prove that I won the popular vote. His people went to California. The investigation got shut down after a year because they could not find any fraud. So where is all of this fraud happening that you're saying, well, I saw it on a video, but not even the people on his side who are sent to investigate it can find these things?
Yeah. Well, like I said, it doesn't matter anymore, but yeah, I know what you're saying, but I remember.
Of course it matters whether or not you are listening to truth, whether or not you are following people who repeat these lies. It matters a lot.
Tom, just 5 minutes ago, you said with a certainty, everybody knows that there was fraud in the 2020 election. Everybody knows that. And then Jimmy just, what?
I said everybody knows. I don't think I said everybody knows that, but
you did.
I don't remember.
You kind of you stated it like it was a matter of fact, like it was just of course there was ballots being stuffed into mailboxes. Why did you say that so confidently? What made you say that so confidently? What have you seen that made you so sure of that?
They changed the rules right before the election, and once you change the rules before the election, whether it happened or not, it made the perception that it was going to happen, and then that just changed. That made everybody think, whether it was a fair election or not, because they changed the rules. Because of COVID.
Wait, Tom, who changed the rules?
Something about that. I can't remember all that one. But yeah,
no. Who specifically? Who changed the rules? Did the federal government change the rules, or did the states change the rules?
States, probably.
Right. So states are in charge. You can't, and if you're DeSantis, you can't be pressured by the Biden administration. States, quote unquote, change the rules. And now, what system did they use? Did they use a brand new novel system? Or did they use a system that was already in place in, I think, at least 5 states? I was in one of them already. That had already been audited time and time again in times past, and literally adopted a proven system that other states had already been using for a long period of time. Was it that or a brand new novel system?
Well, let's put it this way. My neighbor put
No. Answer my question. Don't try and spin it. Was it a new novel system, or was it a state system that had already been proven?
Well, mail-in ballots have been around for a while, so I mean,
right.
I'll say that.
I was in Colorado. Colorado didn't have to change any rules because they've already been using it. The mail-in ballot system has already existed. The reason why it might change the election more toward Democrats is because people are more willing, they are less lazy, frankly, to vote. And when more people vote, the Democrats tend to win. The higher the voter turnout, the better. So you can say it felt unfair because more people got to vote, more people actually got to, and that favors the Democrats. But we should have that be the benefit. That should be in this country. There should already be a type of mandatory voting. Everybody should have the opportunity to vote, and it should be made easy. But Republicans are never going to do that because then they are going to lose every time. It wasn't.
Yeah, there's a reason why Republicans are always trying to make voting harder. It's because they know that when more people vote, they tend to lose.
And you could still vote in person in almost every state. You could still vote by drop-off ballot and absentee ballot. It's that. In fact, almost every state. It wasn't even a changing of the rules. It was you could still call it that, but it was basically expanding their absentee system. That this thing that we already have in place for absentee, now everybody can do because everybody is justified in saying they are afraid of for a health reason, which is one of the reasons you could absentee ballot before.
You know, what I find fascinating, Tom, is
my neighbor applied for a ballot in 2020 and got 5 ballots. In 2024, she put an absentee ballot and she got 1 ballot. So you can't tell me that, there's so many more ballots in 2020 that were just handed out for no reason or whatever reason. I don't know why she got 5 ballots, but she showed me, I got 5 ballots.
How many ballots?
And did your neighbor fill out 5 ballots and turn them all in?
I hope not, but I hope she only did 1. But this year,
and did your neighbor vote for Donald Trump?
Absolutely, yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Okay. So Tom, you're telling me that the Biden administration sent your Trump's. Hold on, Tom. Shut up. Tom, hold on, Tom. You're telling me that the Biden administration, to cheat in an election, sent your neighbor, who's a Trump supporter, 5 ballots, hoping that she would fill out 5 ballots for Joe Biden. That's your proof that there was cheating in the 2020 election?
I'm just saying the election was flawed because people were getting 5 ballots.
No,
people shouldn't be getting 5 ballots.
Tom,
only get 1 ballot.
Tom, answer my question. You're saying that your evidence that there was fraud in the 2020 election is that the Biden administration sent your Trump-supporting neighbor 5 ballots, hoping that she would fill out 5 ballots for Joe Biden. That's the logic that you're working with? Yes or no?
I'm just saying the whole flawed.
No, that is. It's a yes. That's what you're saying.
But here's the funniest part is, Tom, you fundamentally don't understand the mail-in system. Let's say they send me 100 ballots. Can I return 100 ballots safely?
Well, I mean, in 2020 might have been able to. But
no. Tom, you've never been able to.
The answer is no, Tom.
A ballot comes to you if your friend had returned those 5 ballots. The reason I know she didn't return 5 is that she wasn't arrested. That would have been voter fraud. Because while the ballot on the inside of the envelope is separated eventually and kept separate and anonymous, the first thing they do is check the sleeve. The sleeve on the envelope is registered to the individual. The state knows every person who cast a ballot, but not for whom that ballot was cast. By the way, this is the same system that works just as well, especially with, I think it's funny that people think like, well, if we just checked IDs at the even though you do this when you register, they've proven there's no fraud with that shit. And even if you wanted to commit fraud, you're talking about common people who would be checking the IDs as though they can spot a fucking fake ID. If you're that incentivized, the whole thing is dumb. You can't cast multiple votes. It is tracked how many votes a person gives.
It's the most impossibly stupid concept to commit voter fraud I've ever heard, Tom. Yeah. Like, first of all, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say your neighbor is lying to you. That didn't actually happen. No. And second of all, if it did, Tom, why would that be their plan to cheat in the election? Work it out in your brain. Why would the Biden administration send 5 ballots to your Trump supporting neighbor? Why would that be the plan?
I'm just saying the whole system was flawed in 2020 because of COVID and all the other bull. You know,
it wasn't though.
Biden,
it wasn't.
I'm not saying that Trump didn't get illegal votes either. I'm just saying it was.
Do you trust the Trump administration?
I think they did a good job of counting votes this time. You know?
No, do you trust the administration? The Trump administration.
If you win,
do you?
Yeah, if you win, oh yeah.
Do you trust the Trump administration to tell the truth?
100% no, of course not. But I trust them more than what I trust. You know, I mean, everybody's biased one way or the other.
Okay, so the Trump administration in 2024, not Trump himself, said it was the absolute safest and most secure election of all time.
This past election? Or in 2020?
No, the 2020 election. The 2020 election. Also, Tom, I want to ask you a question about this.
The 2020 election, correct. Yeah. The Trump administration said that the 2020 election was the most secure of all time. The people who are, remember, Bill Barr, the guy who wrote the obsequious thing to make sure that he didn't get impeached, the obsequious summary of the FBI report. He is the guy who then came out and said, we went and investigated and all of his claims were bullshit. Republican courts, they got laughed out of court after court after court by Republican appointed judges. I do not have, for all of the things that we've been talking about today, I haven't had to cite any Biden people, any leftist people. I can, with only Republican experts and officials, prove to you that all of your positions are wrong.
And they might be, like I said, I don't care about that election because I'm glad it happened that way. I'm glad Trump had a chance to come back and whether
Tom, you do this. Tom, you do this again and again and again, where we provide like evidence of why a position that you stated is wrong, and you just kind of go, oh well, I guess whatever, no big deal. But can't you just go, oh geez, I guess this thing that I've thought for years I was wrong about, and maybe that means something about my entire worldview. I want to go back to a question that I'm curious about, because you said just the fact that they changed the rules before the 2020 election made it seem suspicious. We pointed out that the states were just changing, their mail-in voter rules to a system that had already been proven in other states, that they weren't just changing the way elections fundamentally work or anything like that. But this idea of like them doing anything at all that has the appearance of impropriety made you raise a flag. Does it raise any flags to you at all that every single time Donald Trump has been asked on the campaign trail if he would accept the results of an election that he lost, he's always said no? That like in 2016, when he was running against Hillary Clinton, he was asked on the debate stage, if you lose this election, will you concede that you've lost? And he said, no. Said, no, if I lose, then I'm going to say that she cheated. And then when he lost in 2020, he did just that. Doesn't it raise, like if a team was going to go,
he said it in 2016 too, even after he won, that he also won the popular vote.
Yeah, he still said that there was fraud. Now, but hold on. Would if there was a team that was playing in the Super Bowl and before the game happened, their coach said, if we lose, I'm going to say that the other team cheated. Just so everyone knows, if we lose the game, I'm going to claim that the other team cheated. And then he lost and went and did a press conference and said they cheated. Would you take that guy seriously? Or would you say, well, he said he was going to do this, and he said he was going to do this before the game was even played, so why would I take this guy seriously? Why does that not raise a red flag to you, that this man tells you, I'm going to claim fraud no matter what?
Well, like I said, once you change the rules right before, it just changes everybody's perception.
Tom, why does it not change your perception that the guy who's claiming fraud said, I'm going to claim fraud no matter what? Before any votes are cast, before anything's happened, he's already on the campaign trail saying, whatever the result of this election is, I'm going to say they cheated. I'm already saying they cheated before the elections even happened. Why does that not make you change your perception of it?
Well, if you're talking about 2020, I mean, I kind of agree that it was just a messed up election to me. So that's just my perception.
No, it wasn't a messed up election. I'm saying your perception of the election is that it's weird because the states changed the rules. I'm asking you, why don't you think it's weird that Donald Trump said, I'm going to claim fraud no matter what? Why is that not weird to you?
Because when the states changed the rules, that
Tom,
gave him the right.
He was saying this before they did that.
Right, way before.
He's been saying this. He's been saying this since 2015. He's been saying, if I ever lose an election, I will just say that the other side cheated. And even when he won in 2016, he said that she cheated. So he's always said this. I'm saying if the guy who always says everyone's cheating, even when there's not even an election happening, and he's just saying, just so you know, they're going to cheat. And he said it in every election he's been a part of. Why does that not make you think, oh, maybe I shouldn't trust that guy because he just says everyone's cheating no matter what happens?
It must be a political move because Hillary Clinton said he cheated for 4 years after he won. So that must be a political move that all politicians.
That's not even true. That's not even
she didn't. She said she won the popular vote, which she did.
Right. Who won the popular vote? She never said that. She acknowledged. She also conceded the election, something he never did. She called and conceded. So did Kamala Harris, something he never did to Joe Biden. Literally ever. He didn't ever concede in the 4 years. But Tom, here's the thing I'm going to say to you about your change the rules point, because you keep making it. First of all, saying they changed the rules, not quite accurate. They changed the process of how you vote, but it was still by the Electoral College, you will win. If you win the Electoral College, you become the president. Those are the fundamental rules. The fundamental rules didn't change. But let me give you this. It was different, and different is scary. And you're quite right. If you make a big change, big changes can be more wrought for fraud. So then what is the answer? Obviously, we had to do something because COVID was, and we didn't have vaccines yet. They were starting to get to just rich people. Like I think Donald Trump probably had his by then, but we didn't have vaccines yet. So what do? Well, you have to do something. You have to change the process. So you go, geez, this is scary. What if somebody exploits it? All right, let's investigate it. And every investigation came back that it was good, that the election by the cyber ninjas, again, Arizona, turns out more fraud happened for Trump. But again, we're only talking about a few, so nobody would I'm not freaking out about that little bit of fraud. Only a few, more for them. His own administration, Bill Barr, and I'm trying to remember the name of the guy, but there's a dude who was like in charge of that, goes out and says it is actually the safest, freest, most fair election that in the history of the country. I'm fine with you going, that's such a big change. What if somebody were to take advantage of the chaos when it wasn't that chaotic? They knew how the process should work. But what if someone did take advantage of the chaos of change and take advantage of it fraudulently? So we investigate it. Obviously, the Democrats, their investigations all came up with nothing. But it's not like only the Democrats investigated. The Republicans investigated. Trump's people, the people he appointed, the people who got him out of impeachment, those people investigated. Kellyanne Conway, the absolute, when Trump farts, she just sniffs it up, loves it, and then defends it to the country. There's no person who's ever been more like hopelessly loyal to the point of being willing to prostrate to herself to any end as much as Kellyanne Conway was to Trump. And even Kellyanne Conway, because she was also in touch with people like Bill Barr, was close with all these other Republican people who were willing to tell her straight. Even she came out and said it was a mistake for Donald Trump to both say that there was all that fraud and to keep talking about it. Move on. She wouldn't directly say like he's lying, but she basically said he's lying with that. This is the woman who said alternative facts, remember? So I agree with you that it's fine to be afraid of an election with such a massive change. And then you should do the things to correct for it. And we did. And the Republican side, the only person who didn't agree was Trump. Trump, who from the Roy Cohn playbook knows and has bragged time and time again, no matter what, you never admit defeat. We know this is a part of his personality, and yet there are a cult of people willing to also humiliate and prostrate themselves, defending a man who would not spit on them if it would improve their situation, but would if it would degrade them. That's the man. He does not care about you. He doesn't care about Americans. He cares about billionaires. We know this because recently when the stock market tanked and then there was that little bump back, he had billionaires in the White House with him, and he was bragging about all the money they made because essentially they got a warning. He was going to put out a message about the tariffs that were going to increase the stock market. And between that increase and then the next dip, they were able to move their investments and make billions of dollars, just like Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to have also done recently because they have insider knowledge. These are insider trading people, and he is the fucking ringleader.
Like Nancy Pelosi and all them, right?
Exactly. Yes, like corrupt Nancy Pelosi. Yes. Absolutely. Okay, yes, of course I do. Yes. Nancy Pelosi is a corrupt politician.
Tom, here's what you got to understand about us is we're not like you. Like we actually are willing to call a spade a spade. When a person is doing something wrong, we're willing to just call it out. We don't go, oh, well, I don't really know about that. You go kind of like Nancy Pelosi and we go, oh, I don't really know about that. I mean, who knows? I don't really know about that. I don't know. I mean, well, maybe. Who knows? Yeah, that's you, Tom. What we do is we go, oh, no, absolutely. Nancy, I don't really do. I don't really know
Nancy
about that.
Pelosi is a very corrupt politician.
I don't know. Who knows? Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? All I know is that it's weird that Marjorie Taylor Greene made a bunch of money, but I don't know about anything else. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe. No, Tom, we're willing to, when Democrats do things that are unethical and immoral, we're willing to call it out. We don't just kind of go, oh, I don't know about that. I don't know. I didn't see that. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not well.
A lot
of stuff. No. I don't want to talk about stuff I don't know. Pretty much everything.
But you do. But you do. You do share opinions about stuff you don't know about. Then when we tell you why you're wrong, you go, oh, I don't know about that. So it's like, why'd you say anything? If you don't know about it, why'd you say anything? You're the one who brings these topics up, and then when we disprove your stance, you go, oh, I don't really know about that. I don't know about that. Why'd you talk about it then? Why'd you bring it up? Why'd you bring it up if you don't know about it? You know?
Well, what happened in 2020? I know what happened to Bill Clinton, and I know all those things. But, yeah.
What happened in 2020 that you know about what happened?
Just changing the rules of the election and making it look like it was...
No, changing the process, not the rules.
Not the rules, changing the process because there was a global pandemic going on.
We desperately need to change the rules of the elections, by the way. Right now, the rules of the elections are currently corrupt as fuck. We need to make voting easy. Every citizen should be given a ballot. There should be a mandate on every state to deliver a ballot to every citizen, and every citizen should have an easy way to return it. And then we should elect by popular vote, because everything they said the Electoral College will prevent is literally what happened, excuse me, with Donald Trump. A pop figure, a drama reality TV figure, was able to become president by being an obnoxious piece of shit. We absolutely should switch to the popular vote.
I'd rather have a non-politician be the president. I don't think they should allow a politician to be a president.
I'd rather have a McDonald's worker fly my plane.
Well, I don't know about that. But,
yeah, no shit. Politician needs...
I don't know about that.
The point where the president, like Biden, how many millions of dollars did he get from...
Yes, I would rather have a non-corrupt politician as a president than a corrupt politician. I also think Joe Biden should not have ever been president. I think we had an opportunity to elect Bernie Sanders, who, while not perfect, is probably the least corrupt person on Capitol Hill. Well, AOC's got, and there's a few other people now giving him some, as far as money they're actually taking, some people giving him run for his money. But we had an opportunity for a much less corrupt person, and a person who cares way more about you individually, Tom, and your position, and actually has kind of contempt for the many billionaires who have taken what pool of money exists. And again, money isn't money, it's security. There's some amount of security out there, and a few people have most of it, and we all share the rest. And he goes and recognizes, that sounds pretty fucking immoral to me, and wants to actually move that money back from them to you, to give you security back from these people who have stolen it from you and built their own, exploiting your own labor. So,
the government steals from us a lot. And then, I mean,
not as much as billionaires do, buddy. Literally, when you say the government is stealing from you, it is mostly in the form of tax cuts that they give to the billionaires and raises on middle class. you're kind of right. They do facilitate that transfer of money, which has been happening for decades now. The income inequality has been skyrocketing, and the government has been helping. So I don't fully disagree with you on that. They steal on behalf of their billionaire buddies.
I don't like big corporations. Back in the old days, let's say 100 years ago, when somebody owned a factory, they kind of worked with the community to hire all the people from the community to, work in the factory. And now the big companies don't give a fuck about the people, in the community.
They give a fuck about having higher profits year over year. So wait, you don't like big companies. Right. Which political party do you think is more kind and more beneficial for a big company?
Oh, boy. Microsoft, they like Democrats.
No, Bill Gates likes Democrats. If you think Microsoft likes Democrats, wasn't the Microsoft people, or were they the one who didn't show up to the inauguration? There are PR, there is PR, and then there is where the money actually goes. You want to say Microsoft people, big corporations love Republicans because they remove regulations. Are they going to kowtow to what they think is going to be more publicly edible? Sure, kind of sometimes, though right now a lot of them are taking some pretty big swings and bets to keep their company alive, like Meta, all coming to kiss the autocrat's ring so that he doesn't target them specifically, especially now. Obviously, Meta gave a couple of $1 million between the inauguration party and other things to Trump, and now they're expecting Trump to intervene on their behalf in the hearings that are happening right now, which he might do because he can be bought. The man is so corrupt, it's laughable. Anyway, we should move to another call. We've been doing this for an hour, Tom.
Yeah.
All right.
Wild.
I wanted to help as well, so there you go.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Tom.
It really, you're right. It was a favor. You helped us out, but I appreciate you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Hey, do you think this clip just fell out of a coconut tree? No, it did. Okay. Now, technically I did build the channel into a coconut tree and it did fall out. And also that our internet router is up there. Actually, in a lot of ways, this production fell out of a coconut tree, but we could only afford that because people like you supported us for $5 a month over where is that, Eric?
Patreon.com/call-the-line. And
that's right.
Jimmy will,
you got it.
Yeah, be grateful. Yeah.
We have an exclusive patron podcast over there. Check it out. Thumbs up with it, Eric. We talked about this in the meeting. We have to both.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Okay, there we go.